The massive doors of the Galactic Concord chamber slid open with a whisper. Kang Tae-woo felt his heart pound as he stepped forward, the only human in a room filled with beings from across the stars. The chamber soared hundreds of feet overhead, its walls shimmering with living light that pulsed in patterns no human mind had evolved to comprehend. 7 elevated platforms held the 7 lords of the Concord. Each represented species that had mastered interstellar travel centuries before humans had invented the wheel. The representative from Earth may approach, announced a melodious voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Tae-woo walked forward, his diplomatic uniform suddenly feeling like a child's costume. He had practiced this moment countless times, but facing these beings, creatures of legend until just 3 months ago when their ships appeared in Earth's skies, was overwhelming. Lord Vela leaned forward, her skin pulsing with blue light that shifted to green as she studied him. She resembled a human woman only in the most basic sense. Her translucent skin revealed organs arranged in patterns no Earth creature shared. "Human Kong," she said, her voice now coming from what seemed to be a mouth. "We have completed our evaluation of your species and planet." Tae-woo bowed respectfully. "The people of Earth are honored by your attention." A sound like tinkling glass rippled through the chamber. Laughter, he realized with a flush of embarrassment. Lord Oryx, a being composed of what appeared to be crystalline rods joined by fields of energy, spoke next. "Your species has barely mastered nuclear fission. You kill each other over resources that are abundant elsewhere in your own system. Yet you speak of honor." Tae-woo's military training helped him maintain his composure. Before becoming a diplomat, he had commanded special forces teams in conflicts that had shaped Earth's fragile peace. He recognized condescension for what it was, a negotiating tactic. "We are young," he acknowledged. "But we learn quickly." Lord Mira, whose faceted eyes and segmented body suggested insectoid ancestry, clicked her mandibles. "Indeed. Perhaps too quickly. Your technological progress has outpaced your ethical development." The central platform descended until it hovered just 10 feet above Tae-woo. Upon it sat Lord Krell, whose species appeared most humanoid, though his gray skin and 6-fingered hands marked him as anything but human. "The Concord has reached a decision," Krell announced. "Earth will be granted protectorate status. We will establish outposts on your world. We will manage your development. We will set resource quotas for your industries. We will gradually introduce you to appropriate technologies." Tae-woo listened carefully to what was not being said. "And in return?" Lord Vela's skin rippled purple. "In return, you receive our protection. There are forces in this galaxy that would view your species as nothing more than test subjects or protein." The implied threat was clear. Tae-woo nodded slowly, his mind racing. His briefing packets had never suggested the Concord would be so openly manipulative. "How generous," he said carefully. "May I ask what these resource quotas might entail?" Lord Krell waved a 6-fingered hand, and a holographic display appeared before Tae-woo. The numbers scrolling past confirmed his worst fears. These weren't quotas, they were demands that would strip Earth bare within a generation. "I must consult with my government before accepting such a generous offer," Tae-woo said, keeping his voice steady despite his anger. "Of course," Lord Krell replied with what might have been a smile. "You have 7 rotations of your planet to consider. We are most patient." As Tae-woo left the chamber, his mind was already racing. The Concord was not what humanity had hoped, not allies, not mentors, but conquerors with diplomatic smiles. He touched the small communicator hidden in his collar. "Send the Arctic signal," he whispered. "Protocol Ursine." He had 3 days to reach the facility buried beneath the ice. 3 days to awaken what his ancestors had hidden there. 3 days before he would return to the Concord, not as a diplomat, but as something their arrogant lords had never anticipated. As his shuttle departed the massive Concord station, Tae-woo looked back at the gleaming structure. The lords thought they were dealing with a primitive species easily cowed by their technology and power. They would soon learn how wrong they were. The wind howled across the Arctic landscape as Tae-woo's transport touched down on the hidden landing pad. Ice crystals stung his face when the door opened. He pulled his thermal coat tighter and hurried toward what appeared to be a simple research outpost. Only a handful of people on Earth knew what truly lay beneath. Diplomatic talks failed? Dr. Kim Juri asked as she met him at the entrance. Her breath made white clouds in the freezing air. The Concorde isn't interested in partnership, Tae-woo replied, following her through security scanners. They want to strip our planet and use our people as cheap labor. They gave us 1 week to accept their protection. Juri's face hardened. Then we have no choice. They descended in an elevator that required both their handprints, retinal scans, and voice authentication. The facility had been built with secrecy as its primary purpose, not to keep aliens out, but to hide Earth's secret from human governments. How many people know about this place? Tae-woo asked as they passed the 300-meter depth marker. 17, Juri said. All descendants of the original Guardian families. Like you and me. The elevator stopped and opened to reveal a vast underground chamber. Scientists worked at stations monitoring massive stasis pods that lined the walls. Inside each pod was a shape, large, powerful, and unmistakably bear-like, yet unlike any bear currently walking the Earth. Project Ursine Guardian, Juri explained, leading him toward the central pod. 50,000 years ago, humanity wasn't as primitive as we appear now. Our ancestors understood genetic engineering at a level we're only beginning to rediscover. Tae-woo approached the central pod. Inside lay the largest of the bears, 12 feet tall when standing, with a modified skeletal structure that would allow it to walk on 2 legs or charge on 4. Its fur was dark brown with silver streaks that formed patterns too regular to be natural. This is Moon, the alpha, Juri said. His DNA has been partially bonded with human genetic markers, specifically, markers from your family line. Tae-woo's grandfather had told him stories about his special heritage when he was a child. He had thought they were just tales until the government recruited him specifically for the first contact team. The bond goes both ways, Juri continued. Your ancestors modified themselves too. That's why you were chosen as Earth's representative. You carry the genetic keys to awaken them. Dr. Park Sun-ho approached with a medical tray. We need to activate your dormant genetic markers first, he explained. The procedure is simple but can be uncomfortable. An hour later, Tae-woo stood before the central stasis pod again, feeling strange new awareness throughout his body. His senses seemed sharper, and he could feel something, a presence, just beyond his consciousness. Place your hand on the scanner, Juri instructed. Tae-woo pressed his palm against the ancient device. He felt a sharp pain as it sampled his blood. The stasis pod hummed with increasing energy. Frost melted from the transparent surface, revealing the massive creature within more clearly. The bear's eyes opened. They were deep brown, almost black, and filled with intelligence no natural animal possessed. The creature's gaze locked onto Tae-woo, and he felt something snap into place in his mind. A connection, ancient and powerful, flared to life between them. The pod hissed open. Scientists backed away as the massive bear rose to its full height. It should have been disoriented after 50,000 years in stasis. Instead, it moved with fluid grace, stepping from the pod and approaching Tae-woo. Everyone in the room held their breath. The bear stopped just before Tae-woo. It was massive, its head level with his despite its slightly hunched posture. Then, with deliberate care, it lowered its head in what could only be described as a bow. Hello, Moon, Tae-woo said, the name feeling right in his mouth. He reached out slowly and placed his hand on the bear's massive head. The connection between them strengthened. Not thoughts exactly, but impressions, emotions, and purpose flowed between them. Will this work? Juri asked quietly. The genetic bond has never been tested with modern humans. Tae-woo felt Moon's response through their link, determination, readiness, and something like relief at being awakened at last. It's working, he confirmed. And the others? We're preparing them now. But the bond won't be as strong as yours with Moon. You're the key to directing them. Tae-woo nodded, feeling the weight of history and future responsibility settle on his shoulders. How soon can they be ready to return with me to the Concorde? 3 days, Sun-ho replied. We need to ensure their systems have fully stabilized after stasis. Moon made a rumbling sound that vibrated through Taewoo's chest. Through their bond, he felt the bear's eagerness. The war bears had been created for one purpose: to defend humanity when they faced threats beyond their ability to fight alone. And the Galactic Lords had no idea what was coming. Taewoo's diplomatic shuttle approached the massive Concord station once again. This time, he was not alone. In the cargo hold, 5 enormous war bears waited with remarkable patience. Moon, the largest, sat in silent meditation, the neural link with Taewoo humming with steady resolve. Concord Control, this is Earth diplomatic vessel requesting docking clearance, the pilot announced. Earth vessel, clearance granted, came the reply. The Lords have been informed of your return. Taewoo touched the small communicator in his ear. Are they ready? He asked Dr. Kim Joo-ri, who monitored the bear's vital signs from Earth. All 5 are stable, she replied. Remember, the neural suppressors will hide their true intelligence from casual scans, but they won't fool a dedicated examination. The docking clamps secured the shuttle with a soft thud. Taewoo took a deep breath and went to the cargo hold. 5 pairs of intelligent eyes turned to him simultaneously. Remember the plan, he said aloud, though Moon could understand him through their link. Follow my lead. Don't reveal your full abilities unless absolutely necessary. The cargo door opened to reveal a delegation of Concord security officers. Their hands hovered near weapons when they saw the bears. What are these creatures? Demanded the lead officer, a tall being with scaled skin. Earth companions, Taewoo explained calmly. Part of our cultural heritage. They're here to help demonstrate Earth's value to the Concord. The officer frowned but waved them through after scanning the bears for weapons. The scanners registered the bears as simple animals with unusual biology, exactly as Taewoo had hoped. The procession moved through the station's wide corridors. Other aliens stopped to stare at the massive bears walking calmly behind the human diplomat. Moon walked directly behind Taewoo, with the other 4 bears, Storm, River, Mountain, and Forest, following in perfect formation. The massive doors of the Concord chamber opened. The 7 lords looked down from their elevated platforms with expressions ranging from curiosity to disgust. Human Kong returns, announced Lord Krell. And brings pets. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Taewoo felt Moon's anger through their link and sent back a calming thought. Not pets, my lords, Taewoo responded. These are war bears, an ancient Earth species bred for combat and companionship. Lord Myra's faceted eyes gleamed with sudden interest. Combat, you say? Against what enemies could such primitive beasts be effective? Perhaps a demonstration would answer your question better than words, Taewoo suggested. The lords conferred briefly. Very well, Lord Vela announced. A demonstration. Our champion against your largest, war bear. Taewoo had been counting on their arrogance. Agreed, he said with a bow. The Concord's champion entered from a side chamber. Torv was a massive reptilian warrior standing nearly 8 feet tall, his scaled body covered with ceremonial armor. He carried a staff that crackled with energy at both ends. This is Torv, Lord Krell announced. Undefeated in 17 combat tournaments across 3 systems. Taewoo turned to Moon and nodded. The massive bear stepped forward into the central area that had quickly been cleared for the demonstration. Begin when ready, Lord Vela commanded. Torv circled the bear, twirling his energy staff with expert precision. Moon simply stood on all 4s, watching, seemingly unimpressed. Growing impatient, Torv lunged forward with blinding speed, his staff aimed at Moon's shoulder, a disabling but non-lethal strike. The gathered aliens gasped as Moon moved with impossible quickness, sidestepping the attack completely. Impossible, someone whispered. No animal has such reflexes. Torv attacked again, this time with a complex series of strikes that would have overwhelmed any opponent. Moon parried each blow with his massive paws, moving with the fluid grace of a trained fighter. Suddenly, Moon rose to his hind legs, towering over Torv. Before the champion could react, Moon had disarmed him with one paw and pinned him to the floor with the other. The chamber fell silent. The demonstration is complete, Taewoo announced into the shocked silence. Lord Krell's face darkened with anger. These are not natural animals, he hissed. They are bioweapons. Seize them. Lord Oryx commanded. Such technology cannot be allowed in primitive hands. Security forces rushed forward. Taewoo sent a quick thought through his link with Moon. Now. Moon released a roar that vibrated at a specific frequency, a signal to the other bears. As one, they moved to form a protective circle around Taewoo. We came in peace, Taewoo called out as the bears began fighting their way toward the exit. Remember that. Moon knocked aside 3 guards with a sweep of his massive arm. Forest and river cleared the path ahead, while storm and mountain protected their rear. They fought their way to the docking bay, leaving stunned but mostly unharmed guards in their wake. The bears had been careful, following Taewoo's mental commands to use minimal force. As their shuttle detached from the station, alarms blared throughout the Concorde facility. Pursuit ships were already launching. That could have gone better, Taewoo said to Moon, who rumbled in agreement. The bear's eyes held a question. Yes, Taewoo answered. Now we move to Phase 2. We find the truth they've been hiding all these years. Their shuttle accelerated away from the station, diving into the relative safety of hyperspace just as the first Concorde weapons locked onto them. The abandoned monitoring station orbited a forgotten moon in a system the Concorde considered too remote to patrol regularly. Its aging hull bore the scars of micrometeor impacts and centuries of neglect. Inside, Taewoo and Dr. Park Sung-ho worked frantically to decode the data they had stolen during their escape from the Concorde station. Moon stood beside Taewoo, occasionally glancing at the viewports as if expecting pursuit ships to appear at any moment. The other 4 bears patrolled the station's corridors, their enhanced senses more reliable than any security system. This encryption is unlike anything I've seen, Sung-ho muttered, his fingers flying across the holographic interface. But there are patterns that seem familiar. Taewoo placed his hand on Moon's massive shoulder. Through their mental link, he sensed the bear's growing impatience. We'll find answers soon, he said, as much to himself as to Moon. The console suddenly chimed. Sung-ho sat back, his eyes wide with surprise. It worked! The bear's DNA sequence contained encryption keys. The Concorde never deleted the old files, they just made them impossible to access without the right genetic markers. The screen flickered, and ancient data began streaming across it. Images, text in languages long forgotten, and star maps filled the display. This can't be right, Sung-ho whispered as he studied the information. Taewoo leaned closer. What is it? According to this, humans weren't always primitive. Earth was once home to a civilization that spanned dozens of star systems. Taewoo stared at the images now appearing, massive cities unlike anything on modern Earth, ships that dwarfed even the Concorde's largest vessels, and humans working alongside creatures that could only be earlier versions of the warbears. We were spacefaring 50,000 years ago? Taewoo asked in disbelief. Sung-ho nodded slowly. Not just spacefaring. We were among the most advanced species in the galaxy. More images appeared, terrible scenes of destruction, planets torn apart, entire systems reduced to debris fields. There was a war, Sung-ho continued, his voice hushed with awe. Against something the records called a void. A species or force that consumed everything in its path. Taewoo felt Moon stiffen beside him. Through their link came a surge of emotions, recognition, fear, resolve. The bears remembered, at some deep genetic level. The warbears were created to fight this enemy, Taewoo said, understanding dawning. That's why they're so much more than just enhanced animals. Sung-ho scrolled through more data. Yes, but there's more. Look at this. He pointed to images showing what appeared to be younger versions of the current Galactic Lord species. They were huddled in refugee ships, fleeing destroyed worlds. And protecting those ships were unmistakably human vessels, with warbears visible fighting alongside human soldiers. We protected them, Taewoo said softly. We saved their ancestors. At tremendous cost, Sung-ho added, bringing up more records. Humanity was losing. The void consumed star after star. In the end, our ancestors made a final stand at Earth, using some kind of weapon that required living sacrifices to power it. The screen showed a massive structure built into what Tae-woo recognized as the Himalayas mountains that now showed no trace of such technology. They saved the galaxy but nearly destroyed themselves in the process, Sung-ho continued. Earth was devastated. The few survivors lost all their technology and had to rebuild from scratch. And the species we saved? Tae-woo asked, anger building inside him. They just left us to struggle back from the Stone Age? Worse, Sung-ho replied grimly. They deliberately quarantined Earth, ensuring humans would remain primitive. They erased all records of our sacrifice and claimed the victory as their own. The door slid open, and both men turned quickly. But it wasn't danger, it was a visitor they hadn't expected. A being with 4 arms and copper-colored skin stood in the doorway. Tae-woo recognized the species as Tellarian, merchants who operated on the fringes of Concord space. How did you find us? Tae-woo demanded, reaching for his weapon. The alien raised all 4 hands in a gesture of peace. I've been tracking Concord communications since your escape. My name is Lee Hae-jin. That's a human name, Sung-ho said suspiciously. I was named after a human who saved my ancestor's life, Hae-jin explained. My people never forgot what humanity did for us, even when the Concord rewrote history. Moon studied the newcomer, then made a soft rumbling sound that Tae-woo felt meant acceptance. Your warbears, Hae-jin said, looking at Moon with something like reverence. We still tell stories about them. The guardians and their bears of war who stood against the darkness when all seemed lost. How many others remember the truth? Tae-woo asked. More than the Concord realizes, Hae-jin replied. Many species keep the old stories alive in secret. We've been waiting for humans to return to the stars, to reclaim their rightful place. Tae-woo exchanged a look with Sung-ho. We need to get this information back to Earth. There's no time, Hae-jin said urgently. The Concord has declared your planet a threat. They're mobilizing their fleet. Then we need allies, Tae-woo said, a plan forming in his mind. How quickly can you contact these other species who remember the truth? Hae-jin's 4 lips curved into a smile. They're already waiting for your call, Guardian. The Concord chamber buzzed with tension as dignitaries from across the galaxy gathered for an emergency session. The 7 lords took their seats on the elevated platforms, their faces grim. Reports of Earth's defiance had spread quickly, and now they faced the uncomfortable task of declaring formal sanctions against the troublesome planet. Lord Krell rose to speak, but before he could begin, the massive doors at the entrance swung open. The chamber fell silent. Kang Tae-woo strode in, his diplomatic uniform replaced with what appeared to be ancient armor styled after the warbear's natural plating. Behind him walked Moon, the massive alpha bear, and 24 more of his kind, each standing 12 feet tall on their hind legs. Their fur gleamed with embedded technology that pulsed with power. But most shocking to the assembled dignitaries were the 15 alien representatives who followed them, species from across the galaxy, many of whom had long-standing disputes with the Concord. This chamber is closed. Lord Vela cried, her skin flashing red with anger. Guards, remove them. Security forces moved forward but halted when Moon released a low growl that seemed to vibrate the very air. The other warbears spread out in perfect formation, not threatening but unmistakably ready. You should hear what we have to say first, Tae-woo suggested calmly. Lee Hae-jin stepped forward, his 4 arms carrying an ancient device. This contains the true history of our galaxy, he announced, activating it. The chamber darkened, and a hologram appeared above them all, showing scenes from 50,000 years ago. Humans fighting alongside warbears. Concord ancestor species fleeing in terror from a darkness that consumed everything. And finally, humans sacrificing themselves to save everyone. You rewrote history, Tae-woo said into the stunned silence that followed. You hid the truth that humanity once saved you all. Lord Myra's faceted eyes reflected the fading images. These are clever forgeries, she insisted, but without conviction. An elderly alien from a species known for their perfect recall stepped forward. My lineage carries the memory of 700 generations, he stated. Every child of my kind learns of the human sacrifice. We have always remembered. One by one, representatives from the other species shared similar testimonies, stories kept alive for 50 millennia, waiting for humanity to return to the stars. Our ancestors made a mistake, Lord Oryx admitted finally, his crystalline body dim with what might have been shame. After the war, they feared human power. The decision to quarantine Earth was meant to be temporary. 500 centuries is a long temporary, Taewoo replied. Moon stepped forward, and the chamber tensed. But instead of attacking, the massive warbear performed a series of movements that the oldest dignitaries recognized with gasps of shock. The ancient salute of the Guardian Corps, a military order thought long extinct. Through their mental link, Taewoo could feel Moon's determination to show that the bears were not just weapons but carriers of culture and memory that span time itself. The threat that our ancestors fought together still exists, Taewoo continued. The void was contained, not destroyed. The records we found suggested will return, and soon. Lord Krell's gray skin paled further. What proof do you have? In answer, Taewoo activated another recording long-range scan showing something consuming the light from stars at the galaxy's edge. Something that was moving closer. Humanity doesn't want revenge for your betrayal, Taewoo declared. We want to resume our ancient role. Earth will stand with the Concord against the darkness, not as servants, but as equals. The chamber erupted in debate. Some demanded Earth's immediate subjugation, while others argued for alliance. The warbears stood silent, their mere presence a reminder of Earth's hidden strength. Finally, Lord Vela raised her hands for silence. The Concord has existed for 50,000 years because we adapt, she said. It seems we must adapt again. She descended from her platform and approached Taewoo directly, an unprecedented act that sent whispers through the chamber. Earth will have a seat on the Concord, she announced. Equal to our own. In exchange, humanity will help prepare our defenses against this returning threat. And the warbears? Taewoo asked. Lord Vela studied Moon, who met her gaze without flinching. They will be recognized as a sovereign species, allied with humanity. Taewoo extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. After a moment's hesitation, Lord Vela took it. As the formal documents were prepared, Taewoo stood with Moon at one of the vast viewports overlooking the galaxy. Stars stretched out before them in brilliant patterns. Our ancestors saved them all once, he said quietly to Moon. I hope we're ready to do it again. Moon rumbled softly, and through their link came not words but a feeling of purpose fulfilled and of coming home after a journey too long delayed. Humanity had reclaimed its place among the stars, not through conquest but by remembering who they had always been, guardians of life throughout the galaxy, standing watch with their most ancient allies at their side.